The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is the 1949 Disney cartoon directed by Clyde Geronimo and Jack Kinney, and this actually aired as part of the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. And I've discussed that, and I mentioned that I liked this then, but I thought I'd check it out now on its own because it is the second feature in the two versions of Wind in the Willows and Sleepy Hollow. So obviously, after I've watched the first one, my mind might have been in a different frame of mind. I did like it, but I thought I'd view it in isolation, and yeah, my opinion hasn't changed that much. But one thing that I did pick up on this time round, which I think was maybe a little bit harder to spot when it's occurring straight after the first feature, is that I didn't think the pacing was very good. To begin with, it seemed to be going alright. We got introduced to Ichabod Crane at a really good pace. We got to know the character, the role of the schoolmaster in this. And then I felt like in the middle it kind of dragged out a little bit, and the pacing just really let me down a little bit, and that kind of dampened my appreciation for it, and definitely made it slightly less pleasing than the first time I saw it as part of the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Obviously, if you're unaware, this is the story of Sleepy Hollow, and we have Ichabod Crane as our protagonist, and the brilliant Headless Horseman, who's one of my favourite characters of yore. Definitely love seeing interpretations of this character. And the laugh for the Headless Horseman was provided by Billy Bletcher, and Ichabod Crane's scream was provided by Pinto Colvig. Bing Crosby actually narrates this, which is pretty awesome and not something I think I realised when I watched this the first time. So having that knowledge, watching it the second time, I could kind of picture Bing Crosby narrating this, and it was definitely a different kind of experience. That was mostly an interesting experience. The narrative itself is of course still an interesting one. I still love the Headless Horseman. But once it kind of introduced our antagonist, I feel like the pacing slowed down a bit. It wasn't as interesting. I'm trying to not spoil too much of the narrative. It's not overly long. It's, I believe, just over half an hour. So, obviously, if I start saying too much about it, I could give away too much. And I think it's, if you're unaware of the Headless Horseman and the romantic aspect of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow and this rivalry between these two men and this woman, then certainly I'd say go in with no knowledge other than what I've said, because I think it does generally tell the story quite well. It depicts it in a pretty pleasing way. Sure, the pacing may be off, but it includes all the elements that I would have expected based on other versions that I've seen, whereas there are other versions of Sleepy Hollow that take a few more creative liberties and bend the classic traditional tale a bit more. That's not so much the case here, and for that reason it does work. Ichabod Crane is a very fascinating character. I like the way he is animated. I like the way he moves. He has very fluid movements, very kind of jaunty as well, which is contrasting, but hopefully you'll know what I mean when you see it. I enjoyed it enough. I think I preferred it the first time because I didn't really pick up on the pacing issues because I was watching it back to back with the first part of the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. But because I sat down to watch this, and it just took a little while to get anywhere and to get to the spooky bits, if you like, the creepy aspects that I like. But once it did get there, it was atmospheric. I found the atmosphere to be quite delightful, as I remembered it. So it's not my favourite version of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. On its own, it's not too bad. But watching it back to back with the Wind in the Willows interpretation, I think, may be more pleasurable. Certainly as a more immersive Disney experience. But if you're a fan of Sleepy Hollow or The Headless Horseman, I'd say it's one that's still worth checking out.